Thank you, Victor. Very honored to moderate this panel. And my job is actually very easy to get the conversation going. And I want to start with the Data Commissioner, who is ably represented by her Deputy Data Protection Commissioner, Ross Mosero. She is basically going as some 5-7 minutes opening remarks. Then she will come back and join our esteemed panelists, and we shall from there. I think, Ross, you may need to go to the podium because you're reading a heavy speech, I presume.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I am representing the Data Commissioner.
And finally, to implement procedures for the transfer of sources to disposal facilities.
Tech team, can we stop the hackers? Where's our tech team? Please proceed, Data Commissioner.
I'm here to represent the Data Commissioner, Immaculate Kasait. Unfortunately, due to a conflicting schedule, she wasn't able to attend. I think what the ask was for me to give a 7 to 10 minute speech, so allow me to shamelessly plug Data Protection Commissioner for those of you who don't actually know what we do, but also, I guess, incorporate the conversation in this as well. We gathered to discuss a topic of paramount importance in our data-driven world and the role of data protection authorities, including that of ODPC, or the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, in ensuring good data governance and trust in the internet cannot be understated. As we navigate the data age and the advent of transformative technologies such as AI, it is essential to envision the internet we want, one that upholds privacy, equity, safety, and ethical practices. The mandate of the Data Protection Commissioner's office encompasses a wide range of responsibility, all of which are aimed at safeguarding personal data, providing oversight and guidance, enforcing data protection laws in Kenya, creating awareness and fostering international cooperation. These activities serve as a pillar for building the internet ecosystem and instilling trust and promoting responsible data governance. One of the key roles of the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner is to protect personal data. In this interconnected world where personal information is shared and stored extensively, it is vital to ensure that individuals' privacy rights are respected. The Office's effort to sensitize and create awareness across various counties within the country has been commendable. Just to let you know, in the last 3 weeks, we've actually engaged in awareness creation activities in 31 out of the 47 counties in Kenya. By educating individuals and organizations about data protection principles, their rights, their obligations, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner has or aims to empower people to make informed decisions and actively participate in shaping the digital landscape. One of the things that we also undertake as the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner is to issue guidance notes, which are another valuable tool in ensuring that organizations are able to implement effectively data governance principles and frameworks, but also understands data protection, which is a relatively new area in Kenya. Offering clear and comprehensive guidance enables organizations to navigate the complexities of data protection regulations and ultimately fostering data practices and building trust in the internet ecosystem. We also participate in international fora as an office, including the Global Privacy Assembly, the Network of African Data Protection Authorities, the Common Thread Network, and we're hoping to be an observer in Convention 108, which is the Council of Europe Convention on Automated Processing of Personal Data and Personal Data Protection. This is important because, again, in an internet interconnected world, data protection authorities don't operate in silos because data doesn't operate in a silo. Being able to work together with other data protection authorities, share knowledge, harmonize standards, and address the challenges posed by cross-border data transfers is important. As we envision the internet we want, the Office of the Data Protection Authorities and their responsibilities and other data protection authorities, several key aspects come to mind. The first is that privacy should be at the forefront, with individuals having control over their personal data and ability to exercise their rights. Equity is critical. Data governance should act as a bridge between, to bridge the digital divide, ensure equal access to information and opportunities for all. Safety is paramount, and robust cybersecurity measures should be in place to protect individuals and organizations from cyber threats. Lastly, ethical practices should guide the development and deployment of emerging technologies such as AI, ensuring that they do not compromise privacy, perpetuate biases, or violate human rights. Regulating the internet space poses very many challenges. The rapid pace of technology advancements often outpaces the development of regulations. Data protection authorities, such as the ODPC, face the task of keeping pace with evolving technologies and adopting regulatory frameworks accordingly. Striking the right balance between data protection and promoting innovation requires continuous research, engagement, assessment, and adjustment. In the realm of internet governance, the responsibility falls not only on data protection authorities, such as the ODPC, but it also rests on organizations and individuals alike. Organizations obviously would need to embed privacy and data protection principles into their operations, ensuring that data governance is a priority from the onset. They should adopt privacy by default in design, implement robust security measures, and foster a culture of ethical data handling. Individuals, too, have a role to play. It is essential for everyone to be conscious of their digital footprints, exercise caution while sharing personal information, and hold organizations accountable for their data practices. By being informed and being vigilant, individuals can actively contribute to shaping a responsible and trustworthy internet ecosystem. In conclusion, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner plays a pivotal role in ensuring good data governance and trust in the internet ecosystem by fulfilling its mandate to protect personal data, providing oversight, guidance, enforcing data protection laws, creating awareness, fostering international cooperation. The office contributes to an internet ecosystem that respects privacy, promotes equity, ensures safety, and upholds ethical practices. As we embrace technology and navigate the data age, let's collectively envision an internet we want, an internet that respects privacy, again, promotes equity, ensures safety, and upholds ethical practices. Achieving this vision requires collaboration, requires education, shared commitment to data protection from data protection authorities, organizations, and individuals alike. Together, let us build a digital landscape that fosters innovation, empowers individuals, and instills trust in the internet ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Commissioner, for those opening remarks. She has set the stage for us to now delve into the panel session. But what I picked from her, by the way, it's a very young office, but I will have to admit its impact is already being felt, and that is how it should be, because increasingly as we become a data economy, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner is going to play an increasingly critical role together with other regulators. The issue that I picked from the Data Commissioner's speech, among others, is the issue of data equity The people collecting our data are, of course, getting value from it, but the issue of the data subjects, whether or not they're also getting part of the value, is it an equitable distribution of that value? Of course, most of these platforms are free, so one would argue that that in itself is value. But there are others who would argue that perhaps there's more value beyond the free service when you compare the two. Also, the issue of privacy by design, those techies in the room, you need to be cognizant of the fact that the tools you're building need to be, compliant from the word go rather than as an afterthought. But not to exhaust everything, I want to bring in my panelists, starting with Cynthia. Please introduce yourself and maybe give us your opening remarks and reaction to the speech. Just take the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cynthia Chepkemoi, and I'm a data protection officer and a cybersecurity advocate as well. So as we begin this session, I know it's going to be engaging, and we're going to interact on how institutions who are processors or controllers are going to be compliant with the data protection laws and its general regulations. And the good thing is we have the Office of the Data Protection in the room, and they're going also to provide guidance as we shed more light on the ways to comply with the regulations and the Act.
Thank you. You can hand over to GB. Before she speaks, I want to just say Cynthia is a lawyer who also went through the KeIGF program, if I recall. Anybody who's done KeIGF in the room? Okay, that's good. A lot of our KeIGF alumni have gone ahead and done wonders in this space. I don't know if the GIZ data protection guy is in the room or is still in Europe. But most of the graduates of KeIGF got the bag of data governance or internet governance, data privacy, info security, after going through the KeIGF program, which tries to put and connect all the dots together, and then from there you choose the area that you want to delve into. GB, tell us who you are and any reactions to the Data Commissioner's speech.
Good afternoon,
I
everyone.
think the other one.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Grace Mutung'u, or Bomu, so GB. I'm here wearing two hats. One, I'm coordinating a project for Open Society Foundations on digital ID. And in this role, we have really been thinking about public data, so to speak, or data that is held by public agencies. In a country like Kenya, one of the agencies that holds a lot of data, perhaps even more than some of the private institutions, would be the government, because we have had national ID since time immemorial. And one of the questions we are grappling with is how to ensure the highest standards of privacy and data protection for that data, especially when you remember that you have no choice when it comes to these government services. You need them, and so you will always be in this position where you give out your data. And then the second hat I'm wearing is from an organization, an association of professionals, very recently formed, but also very, very vibrant. It's called the Data Privacy and Governance Society of Kenya. And I'm not alone, I also came with my chair, Mugambi Laibuta, who most of you might have interacted with. So this Data Privacy and Governance Society of Kenya brings together professionals who are working in both data protection and data governance, issues of AI, and all that. Surprisingly, we are not just lawyers, we also have a lot of techies, people from the banking industry, human resources, and so on. And we are just also trying to figure out how we can best support implementation of the Data Protection Act, as well as other laws that are coming on data governance. So I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, thank you, GB. I have to confess I'm also a member of the Data Governance Society.
People will say we are a cartel.
No, not a cartel. We wear many hats. And I think it was when we were forming that, I remember we argued, we wanted initially to be purely data, privacy / protection, but some members felt it's gonna grow beyond privacy and it's gonna be about governance. And I think we made the right call there. I want to remember our online panelists, Dr. Ololade Shyllon, Head of Privacy Policy. Are you online somewhere? You can say hi to your people.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ololade Shyllon. Everyone calls me Lola just because it's easier. It's such a pleasure to join you, albeit virtually. And I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that gives us a feel of this group of panelists. And to kick us off, I want to ask Cynthia, because data protection has already told us what the institutions do. I want to jump to Cynthia. If you may, tell us, what do you see as the top 3 challenges to data governance from where you sit as the DPO at this financial institution?
So to respond to Walubengo, yes. We meet him out there, we call him Walu. So he was my teacher. Great. So to respond to that question, it's a really interesting question to respond to, and the challenges are immense, so to say, because we all believe the industry is still young and the office is still young as well, and that means institutions like hospitals, schools, and they will be asking a question like, who is qualified to be a DPO? And the Act is very clear on who should be a DPO, but it's not super clear on who should be a DPO, because when you look at the roles and the roles you are going to play, data protection is multidisciplinary. And this is where I'll come in to say we really need to build capacity in terms of qualifications of a data protection officer, the skill sets, the knowledge. Because in my experience as a data protection officer, I've had the challenge where you need to work with diverse teams. One minute you're working with the risk and compliance departments, the next minute you're working with the IT department or the cybersecurity department, and you really need to understand the technical terms and how are we going to fuse privacy to make them match and not bring in conflicts. So we really need to build capacity of data protection officers. And another option or alternative to this challenge is outsourcing services from consultants where you feel like you don't have the capacity. Well, and to the second challenge is about the fragmented processes that institutions have in terms of where do their data sit, who is the data custodian, who is the data steward. So the major challenge is also having data governance frameworks within institutions who are data controllers and data processors. Where we lack framework, then we cannot really action or implement any process. So having a data governance framework, it forms part of the corporate governance of any corporate institution. So it's going to be a new framework that comes in, and it will take time to implement, but I believe whoever is in the space, we will figure out how this is going to be done. But a data governance framework is key because it stipulates the standard operating procedures of actually ensuring that you are compliant with the Data Protection Act.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. You can give the mic to Grace. The issue of skills, capacity of DPOs, You know, it's a role that requires multidisciplinary skills, legal tech, and it's, I agree, very difficult to get one person with all those diverse skills. So perhaps it's a matter of setting up a team. But over to GB, same questions. What do you rank as the top 3 challenges when it comes to data governance?
I think when it comes to the public, quote-unquote public data, and now I'm even reacting to Rose's speech earlier on, I think one of the issues has to be the history and where we are coming from. Historically, public agencies have been collecting data because they were providing services, and they never had to be oversighted for the data they were collecting or oversighted for what they were doing with that data. And I think it's a really big challenge to educate these public agencies on the importance of digitalization, because it's not the same thing. I have heard over and over again public officers talking about, we already have your data, what are you worried about? We already know everything about you. It is true, but it's very different when it's in digital format. It can be linked to other pieces of information about you, even things you don't know about yourself. So I think that's one big challenge, just getting a paradigm shift within the public agencies, because they have been doing this for long, and not only within the public agencies, also private agencies. I have come across banks that, you know, you want to open an account and they want to collect data about your marital status, and you ask them, why do you need to know about my marital status? Madam, we have always done that. This is a standard form. Wewe tuambie tu, are you single or not? You know, which is something that I don't think it has come down to the people, that there is an implication when you collect more data than you need. Even on you as the company, there is an implication to collecting more data than you need, and also that in this new age, because it could affect me as your customer, you could do me better by collecting less, you know. And this linkage between public and private agencies, yeah, because there are a lot of private agencies who are doing what would essentially be public roles, yeah. A good example would be Facebook. Facebook is basically the digital public square. Yeah. Before, at the risk of revealing my age, before people used to meet at Mamangina Street and discuss. I don't know whether anyone can relate with this example, but there used to be like a little kamukunji there where people would discuss like the finance bill would have been discussed over there in a kamukunji. But now people are doing it online on these social media spaces. They don't need the chief to necessarily come down and give you a baraza. So there's also that aspect of sometimes you don't know who's a private person and who's a public person because they're providing the same services. Yet, the Data Protection Act could be very broad in just saying, or if this is public interest, then they don't need to come to consent. They don't need to ask you. It could be taken as a public role. I mean, as part of public interest. So that's also another challenge. And maybe the last one, very quickly, is just this habit of, let's first collect the data, we'll make the laws later. I think that is problematic because the laws are being made to suit already collected data. Yeah, and we've had examples where, you know, private companies are even trying to collect biometric data and then later on asking the regulator or the executive to make regulations on biometric data to suit them, yeah, as opposed to first thinking about, do we really need to collect this biometric data? Is it safe? Is it just speculative? When you store so much biometric data and so on. So I think that's also another challenge that we need to think about.
Okay, thanks, JB, for those insights. One thing that sticks out for me is public sector, you know, collecting our data and feeling very entitled around it. I'll come back to Rose to tell us how they're gonna police government. It's easy to police private sector, but when government is the culprit, she'll have time to tell us how they deal with government. I want to go to online and ask Dr. Shyllon to give us her views on the top 3 challenges from where she sits with regard to data governance. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. I think I'll start by talking about the lack of harmonization of regulation. And I know this is not specifically, focused only on Kenya in particular, but it's something that we see as a challenge across the region. So, of course, let me first of all acknowledge that we've heard that the AU Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection is now in force, although I'm not sure there's any official recognition or statement to this effect. So we've been told it came into force on the 8th of June, but when you check the website of AU, it still says there's 14 ratifications. So there must be some information gap somewhere. But that said, we as Meta recognize that data-driven innovation cannot occur without regulation. So definitely regulation is very, very important. And such regulation must protect people's data while also promoting a conducive environment for innovation to actually occur. And so we are very supportive of, conversations around regulation and, of course, on compliance with this regulation. But as you can imagine, a lack of harmonization means that if all states across the world were to have individual data protection laws, then that means potentially we, as a company and other companies, that are global in nature, will be required to comply with, 190 or 200 different data protection, data governance or data protection frameworks in particular. And so for us, harmonization is very, very important because it also ensures beyond making it easier or more structured for companies. It also means that individuals have the same protection across the board. It's consistent no matter where they are. So the more harmonized it is, the more it's possible for those providing services like ourselves to standardize our approach to compliance and our obligations that come under the respective laws. So that's the one thing I wanted to flag. The other one I would say, and I caught some reference to this at the very beginning of the session, was about the kind of thinking around data. What does data mean? What is its nature and what is its value? And one phrase that has been said over and over in the last couple of years is the one that ascribes the same kind of a strong connection between data and oil, right? So first of all, I should say that I absolutely agree that data is extremely valuable for organizations, and it's if you use it strategically, it helps you to achieve your business goals. It helps a whole range of organizations, whether you're a business or you're a charity or you're a government. As was said earlier, the government also collects a lot of data from individuals. And, the ability to gather, store, and analyze data is also invaluable. If you have high quality data, you can gain really good insights from that data. But I think one of the struggles that we face is should I say, misconceptions about, data and its value, especially the data is new oil analogy. And why would I say it's problematic? I think there are too many reasons, because one of them is that it connotes that data is a scarce resource, and so you must hoard it and keep it. And also that somehow it enriches those who have or own the most amounts of data, which actually is not very accurate. So just to share a few points around why data is not, actually oil. First of all, and I think most important, is that data is not finite. So you can't actually run out of data, but you can run out of oil. As you can imagine, That happens, oftentimes. The other point is that data is non-rivalrous. So that means that it can be used simultaneously. So I can be using a set of data and somebody else can be using that set of data without actually affecting the quality or the value of that data, right? Another point I wanted to flag is that, and I think I said this earlier as well, the quantity of data that you have doesn't mean that doesn't make it valuable. So it's not about the quantity, it's really about, how you use that data and what value you can derive from it. So it's not about large amounts, it's about what you do with the data. And I could go on and on. But finally, I wanted to say that also that data is contextual. So the value of data really depends on the context it is placed or in which it is used. So for example, if I share data about, the kind of food I like, that might be relevant to someone that is looking at, opening a restaurant, right? But if the data I'm sharing is about the kind of cars I like, it might not be of very much value to, someone that owns a restaurant and is trying to look for customers and is trying to advertise and things like that. So those are the top two things. And if I can squeeze a last one, if I haven't been talking for too long, I think I would say also lack of privacy awareness is something that we see across the board. Of course, not limiting this only to Kenya. So just basic, I know it's called often digital hygiene, but let's say privacy hygiene, and probably this is linked also to privacy literacy. What are the basic things that, ordinary people, individuals can do to keep their information safe online as they're accessing digital services and navigating the online space? We find that is often something that is missing, generally speaking. And also now bringing home to us as a company and as a platform, just information about that has been shared, for example, about the privacy policy, which talks about, transparently what happens with the data that we share with that particular service provider, including Meta. How is your information collected? How is it used? How is it stored? How is it shared? We find that oftentimes a lot of people, and I'm not limiting this only to Kenya, do not engage or understand all these layers of information, and so it then makes it very, very difficult for them to be able to exercise control and make use of whatever tools that are available to them, or even to exercise their rights as data subjects that are probably already provided for them in the data protection law or any other framework that applies to data governance. So those are the top three things I would mention. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Doc, thanks for your insight. One thing that I picked is the need to harmonize the laws. For example, across Africa, if you're a multinational operating in different jurisdictions, you may find that the data expectations in Kenya could be different from Nigeria, Ghana, or South Africa. So as a company, you struggle to sort of comply with all those jurisdictions. But if we had a harmonized framework like what the AU is trying, I think it's now in force, you probably will make life easy for corporates. Then the discussions around the value of data, very insightful on that. And it is important to remember, as she says, having data is one thing, but mining it or making value, creating value out of it is a completely different discussion. Thanks for your insights. And now I want to perhaps give a chance to Ross. I had told her she'll tell us how to police her boss. And then perhaps tell us also, what are the challenges for the commission? You are a new commission. What are your top, 3 challenges you're facing as you try to implement the Data Protection Act? Over to you.
I'll start by saying that the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner is an independent commission, so we technically don't have a boss. And we govern the private sector and public sector equally, so we don't discriminate based on where I guess our funding comes from. one of the things that I will say, and something that is left out of the public eye often about public sector entities or organizations, is that of the number of institutions that actually come to my office, being that I deal with compliance, asking for assistance on how to comply with the Data Protection Act, majority of them are public entities. Overwhelmingly, we are stretched because we're assisting public entities comply with the Data Protection Act, which is not the same as what happens in private sector entities. So even as we look at what public sector is doing, and we look at, I guess, the historical faults of public sector, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that they are making strides. However, that being said, obviously data protection is new to everyone, private sector, public sector alike. And so there's a need for the office to engage more, and we have been, to ensure that as new processes are being rolled out, it's not a matter of thinking about data privacy as an afterthought, but actually having it full in mind when you're looking at the initiatives that the government is actually rolling out, specifically in the digital space, whether it's digitalization of government, having your government services available and e-citizen and the like. When it comes to challenges, the challenges that are faced by the Data Protection or the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner and the challenges that are faced by private sector and all those that have mentioned are very similar. The only difference is that we see to the apex and decide, okay, so what are our top priorities? You've mentioned, or a number of the conversations are around capacity building, understanding of laws, harmonization. All those are things that keep us awake at night. We understand that we live in a global economy, and so harmonization of data protection laws is very important. So we engage with other data protection authorities. We engage in international fora to ensure that international documents or treaties or conventions or protocols that are being enacted or being developed to actually comply with data protection, but also are looking at what does it mean to have harmonized laws. So this is, for example, the FCFTA digital trade protocol. There's a number of other bilaterals and multilateral engagements that are happening on this. But I think our biggest challenge overall is just awareness creation, and this comes from a data subject aspect, so individuals such as you and I, but also organizations aspect as well. So we look at capacity, and capacity is great, but if you don't understand what exactly it means to be data protection compliant, you don't understand what data protection actually means, interpretation of the Act, and all that, then you're never going to get to a point where we're going to mature as a country in terms of data protection compliance. So bringing on board effectively everyone, which is a very difficult task for an office that has only been around for 2.5 years, but it is not something that is impossible. We are making steps to that. As has been mentioned, we've done awareness creation in 31 out of 47 counties, and we'll continue to ensure that we're doing awareness creation sessions across the country so that we have people who understand, both businesses and individuals understand what data protection is. I guess one of the other things that we struggle with as well, and many times in this forums when we sit down and someone asks, I think in the last maybe 3 engagements that I've had, someone has said, okay, so what does AI look like for you? How is the Data Protection Office regulating AI? Great question, right? Great question, but how would you like if we regulated something that, you know, perhaps we don't fully appreciate or we don't understand, we don't know the potential of it, so we are not able to competently regulate the space. We then are accused of a thing on a regular basis, which is that we're curtailing innovation. And so I guess that the whole aspect of rapid advancements in technologies and us having to keep pace to do research is something that is a difficulty for the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner and all data protection authorities across the globe. Which then brings me to engagements with private sector, which is something that I will continue to talk about in every session, every time that I'm given airspace to talk about this, I will. You are the ones that are engaging in innovation. You are the ones that are coming up with the technologies. You're the ones that know exactly what needs to be put in place. You're the ones who know how the regulations will affect you, how the Office of the Data Protection decisions will impact your business. We're here to draw or to balance between the rights, the human right to privacy, but also business continuity, business growth, economic growth, and things like this. So one of the difficulties we find is, as regulators, I think in Kenya we have a bad rep where people don't usually approach us. And so we find that people hide in secrecy and don't want to tell us what they're doing. But if you don't tell us, we'll come for you, and we'll come for you with an understanding of what you're trying to achieve. So engage us so that we can work for you.
Okay, thank you, Data Commissioner. What I pick is that she's a friendly regulator, okay? The carrot before the stick. So don't fear. The other thing I pick is that ODPC is an independent office. Even though the Ministry of ICT is the funding organization, they act independently, and I want to believe they can call the minister to order in matters data privacy. And finally, as a techie, I'm very impressed about cautious approaches to regulating AI. You know, you don't want to jump in and put parameters in a sector that is perhaps evolving. So you probably want to work very closely with the people in the industry as you monitor closely what is happening. I want to go to the last series of questions because, unlike Ross, I have a boss who is remotely telling me I've run out of time. So just for each panelist, I want to give you 2 minutes to talk about trust, data and trust. And from where I sit, this morning I was in another, Human Rights Commission seminar where they were talking about women feeling very unsafe online. They probably will not participate in online spaces because they face sort of undue exposure. Last year we went through an election year, and the female candidates were, facing online bullying, abuse, among other stuff that traditionally the male counterparts don't even have to think about. So the issue of trust, how do we build trust in data? From a government point of view, also Kenyans were very suspicious of the Huduma number thing. Yeah, the new regime has dumped it, but they have a new version. So I don't know if the new version has the same issues. So trust in data is real. And so Cynthia, what do you think from where you sit? How do you build trust in data? 2 minutes. Then Grace, be thinking also. And our online doc.
Well, so to respond to how do we build trust in data, one, we have to prioritize end user experience because it is as the data subjects, the people that private and government entities serve. So how do they feel about the applications, the systems? Like when you go to eCitizen, how do you feel about your data being there? And the question is, if you hear that NHIF has been hacked, how will you respond to that? You'll feel like your data is not safe. And remember, in your NHIF cover, you have your whole family, your dependents, your children, vulnerable people. So we have to prioritize end user experience, one, to create trust. We need to inform the public as the government and also private sector actors that we have the policies in place that are data protection policies, and you also invest in data security mechanisms, like it was mentioned earlier, cyber insurance. It's expensive, but then if you cannot afford cyber insurance, what do you do? What controls do we have in place? So we need to have the technical controls in place to ensure that we are actually protecting the data that we hold. Thirdly, the best approach as a data protection officer is to create data trust, is have the PPT approach in mind, the people, the processes, and the technology, and we prioritize the people, which is, or who are the end users. So without prioritizing the end users, then we might lose in the game, because these are the people who will go to the commissioner to complain that there's a data breach, or maybe apply to assess my data, but it was not responded to within the required timeline. And as even we proceed or continue to onboard in digital application softwares, then as a user also, we need to try and understand what are the risks that come with this and get to have that knowledge on how we can stay safe online.
Thank you. GB, data and trust?
I think there are quite a number of ways, but in 2 minutes, what I would really like to say is that it really is a matter of power, and unfortunately, the power is on the side of whoever has the data. Yeah, never mind whether they own it or not. Even without getting into that debate, the power is on that side. And so, to build trust, the people with the power have to show us that they are doing the right thing, have to show us that they are giving us the utmost care, even when we don't know. Because at times we don't know that people have our data, organizations have our data. Yeah. So that's, if there was that highest duty of care, even without me coming, I totally agree that it's very important to keep educating data subjects and everything, but I'm of the school of thought that we should not put the burden on the data subject. We should put the burden on the data processors and data controllers, all the people holding data, because they're already holding the data, even sometimes without the engagement with the data subject. So I'd say that we all need to support the work of civil society, because they are one group of people who are playing a key role in representing the others, representing even those who do not know that these are their rights to fight for. They are doing strategic litigation, they are trying to change the law, they are building movements and communities. I'm so glad to see people from Nigeria here. I think they've done a pretty good job with the Data Protection Act in Nigeria, and we are going to learn so much by just being in coalition with them and moving together. So yeah, I think there are many ways to build trust, and those are some of them.
Thank you, GB. Over to our online panelists. Doc, the burden to build trust is on you. What is the Meta experience? What is Meta doing to build trust? We can learn from you. 2 minutes. You may be on mute, though. Doc, you're on mute. You're on mute. Just repeat.
No, I'm no longer muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, now you're good.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. So, if I could sum up what, from our perspective, would really mean to build trust, I would say it will be the responsible use of data. How do we ensure that data is being used responsibly, and how do we ensure that we take our role as data controllers / processors very seriously? And just to share the way we look at this and how we approach this, I would run very quickly through our privacy principles, which are public, by the way, and which is literally the way we explain how we go about, protecting privacy in all that we do. And if you look at them very closely, they're sort of a combination of what you will find as data processing principles, as well as the data subject rights in most of the regulations that you find across the board. So we have principles that talk about, for example, first of all, giving users control of their privacy, basically helping them to understand what tools they have to make privacy choices, helping them to find those tools and helping them to be able to learn how to use those tools. We also have a principle that focuses on helping people to understand how their data is used. Like I mentioned earlier, the main source of that is the privacy policy. And so it's about how do you make sure that first of all, the privacy forest policy is accurate, has all the relevant information, is easy to understand, and contains, all that is required to make sure that there's actual complete transparency. So that's the second principle, helping people to understand how their data is used. There's also privacy by design. How do you ensure that you're designing products and all that you're doing with that as the foundation? Because as you can imagine, adding on privacy when you're halfway through is a recipe for disaster. It's almost impossible to get it right if you're doing it only as an afterthought. So we try to make sure that we do that from the very, very beginning. And this is actually an effort that requires a whole host of people, not just those who are building the products, but also folks in policy, in product management, and the like. The other key is security, and I think one of my co-panelists mentioned this. We make sure we work hard to keep information secure. And so the goal here is to prevent things from happening rather than to sort of deal with them afterwards. Of course, sometimes that is required, but the goal will be to ensure that we are making sure all the systems are safe and secure, and ensuring that security is at the forefront of how we approach protecting data. Another principle is about making sure that people can recognize that people own their information and can delete it anytime they want to delete it. And so this is about ensuring that they have the tools to access the information that is being held, but also to be able to delete that information whenever they want to. The last two principles, first is that improvement is constant. And that just means that the job is never done, right? It has to be a continuous effort to upgrade whatever tools or approach that exists. There's always room for improvement. So how do you make things better in terms of the work that we're doing in terms of privacy? And the final principle is about being accountable, ensuring that we are looking at all the requirements that exist across the board, no matter how hard it is, no matter how widespread it is, no matter how many they are, and ensuring that we are taking the right steps to have comprehensive privacy reviews and working around the privacy program that we have, and also taking in feedback from everyone, experts, policymakers, academics, on how we can do better, because we definitely know that we are not always, we're not always getting everything right 100% of the time, and so where there's gaps, where there's things we can do better, we also want to make sure that we're learning and we're getting all that feedback and actioning that feedback as much as we can. Sorry, I think I maybe went over 2 minutes, but that's it for me.
Thank you, Doc, for those insights. Increasing trust through following the data protection principles. I want now to come back to Rose, the regulator. She will tell us what she does to those people who don't follow the data protection principles. Over to you.
I'll start by answering the question that you asked everybody else. Firstly, I think the Data Protection Act is relatively clear. It is comprehensive. If I would say so myself, it's one of the most comprehensive data protection frameworks that we have in Africa and certainly globally. And so there's no need to regurgitate what it states. But I think what needs to be done is to build the culture. And the only way to build trust is to have that culture where someone is free to give their information, knowing that these people, whomever they're giving information to, has already taken into account their privacy requirements, the law, what it says, so that it becomes an anomaly when someone isn't complying with the Data Protection Act. It becomes something that is not as frequent as what happens. So, for example, if you go to any European country, even children know what GDPR is, and the reason is because not GDPR specifically, but data protection has been present in the EU for over 40 years. We're still 2 years, so 3 years in. So we have to mature, but if we build a culture, we'll then see some of these other issues actually fall apart. The conversations will move from what do we need to do to how do we take a number of approaches. My directorate is specifically on compliance, so I don't punish anyone. Usually I am literally the friendly face of the regulator. But we do have provisions where if there is a breach of the Data Protection Act and there's a complaint that is made, or we find that through interest we investigate on our own initiative, we can issue enforcement notices. And what this effectively means is that we will tell you what you need to do to comply with the Data Protection Act. And if you fail to do what we recommend, then we will fine. And we have issued a number of fines, I think 3 fines this year. And we will continue to do so. I think someone mentioned that we seem to be slowing down. We're not. There is a procedure that we're following. We're not here to continuously fine. We're here to actually help build that culture that I was speaking of. And in the event that we don't have that culture internalized in the organization, then we will, at the last resort, issue a fine.
Thank you, Regulator, on those insights. My director is telling me I'm 5 minutes past the time, so I want to wrap this up. I know you may have had some burning questions from the floor. Please get online and just throw them there. I promise we'll get time and address them. But I want to start with Cynthia, 1 minute, closing remarks, then GB, then Doc Online, and finally the regulator. 1 minute, closing remarks.
Well, so as a closing remarks, my advice will be that to all stakeholders in the room, that's from the private sector, the government, civil society, academia, is that, and this is to echo what Rose has just said, that we build a data culture whereby we wouldn't have to fight to get data, and as we use that data, we are compliant and we give adequate information to data subjects. And further, we harness the power of having working data governance frameworks. Well,
thank you. GB?
This is definitely an unfinished conversation and work in progress that would be going on. I'd like maybe to invite all of you to follow the Data Privacy and Governance Society. We are at Data Privacy KE on Twitter, where we can go on with this conversation as it evolves. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Doc Online, closing remarks, 1 minute.
Thank you very much. So because I took more than 2 minutes, I'll be very brief. What I just want to emphasize is the importance of a multi-stakeholder approach to being able to have a, data governance run the way we would like to see it. And so it's really not the responsibility, I would say, or it's impossible to have only one of the stakeholders play all the roles. It's important to have, the regulator in the space, policymakers, generally speaking, private sector, public, like everyone has to come together to play their part to ensure that we have a thriving data governance and ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Regulator Ross?
Thank you. And I'll echo what Lola has mentioned, collaboration, partnership. It is not a role only for ODPC to regulate, but it is important for each organization to also be accountable to itself and to the people that it serves when it comes to data protection, but also to educate the people that it serves. So your customers, your clients, whomever you're collecting information from, it is important that they know not only what data protection is, your data governance frameworks, but also what they can do to safeguard themselves. And what I've said as well previously in terms of approaching us to tell us your needs, how we can be a better regulator, what it is that you're trying to innovate so that we can see how it best fits the ecosystem. We can give advice on some of these things as well, which a number of private sector organizations have come to us on. Don't be afraid to come to us to tell us, look, this is what we're doing as an organization, this is what we want to achieve, and this is how best we feel that you can regulate this space given the innovation that we're getting on. So take your responsibility to come to us as well so that we don't have to chase you. the latter is far far worse than you coming to us from the get-go. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give them a big round of applause. I'm sure you've learned a lot like me. There was a burning question from the floor about Huduma number, but Jared, please post it online. As GB said, we have just begun the conversation. There isn't enough time to go into each and every thread unless we push to the online platforms. I think I want to hand back the mic to my president, Potas, to tell us what next. Asanteni sana.
Another round of applause for them.